Hi, so in this video, we're going to talk about how to read and write JSON files. So earlier we talked about serialization and deserialization between Python objects and JSON strings. Now, if we go back to the general definition of serialization, uh, that process is also used to store information in a file and to retrieve it later. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, or in this video. Now, obviously, we already know how to store things to a file. So, and we know how to convert Python objects into a string. So we can, do it in two steps, convert it to a string and then store that string into a file. Now, there is an even easier way than this two-step process because JSON library itself, it supports directly putting things into the file and reading things out from the file. And let me demonstrate how to do that. It's actually very similar to serializing a Python object to a string. Now, because we have to put in a file, obviously we need a file. So this is how we open a file, if you remember. That is open a file. I'm going to call this a ps.json. Okay, I'm going to, it's the first thing I'm going to do is to serialize a Python object into a file, right? So I'm going to have to write to a file. Okay, so I'm going to specify W and I'm going to say as file. Okay, so now obviously I'm not going to print out a string here. Now remember dump s is used to serialize a Python object into a string. So that's kind of like, writing to a string, right? So instead of writing to a string or return a string, I'm going to write to a file. So instead of dump s, which is a string, I'm just going to say dump. And then the destination is no longer a string. I have to give it the file that I'm dumping to. And that's, I believe, that's it. So let me run this. And well, it didn't say anything, but hopefully we have created a file called ps.json, which is the name we have here, and we open it, and there we go. That's a JSON file. It's again, it's a one-liner. That's perfectly valid. Now maybe we want to maybe make it look prettier, and then if that were the case, we can just like dump s, we can specify the indentation. I'm going to run this again and I'll open ps.json, and here looks just easier to read for human beings at least. Now after we write to a file, we want to be able to read from the file. So as before, instead of doing it in the Python file, I'm going to do it in the console. So the same thing, we are going to use with, and then we're going to say open the file that we just wrote to, or ps.json. We're going to use it for reading. So by default, opens it for read. So we don't have to say anything. So I'm going to say as file. And then the next thing we're going to do is, so JSON.load. Load as is to load from a string, right? But to load from a file, I'm just going to use load without the s. I'm going to say file. Okay, and I'm going to give it a name. Let's say ps from file. Okay, so let me run this in one more time. And there, it read from the file. So again, if we look at this variable here, ps load from file, it's a Python list of two Python dictionary. You expand the dictionary, same as before, first name, last name, age, and all of that. Okay, so hopefully you get the idea of how to serialize, deserialize to a file, which again, very similar to doing it with to a string, but just kind of use a slightly different method, and we have to open the file first. Okay, so yeah, now it's I think it's your turn to try something else. So remember, we have our the JSON file, the official JSON file from the New York Times, the movie critics pick. So you can just write a few lines of code in the Python console, like what I just did, and then load everything from that JSON file into the console, and then you can examine it like what I did here in this pane that shows you all the variables.